guys, welcome to this video. My name is Eva, and in this video I want to share what I wish I knew before starting trauma therapy, because for me it was such a transformational but also very hard journey, and I just really hope that this video will help you. Short disclaimer, I will talk about trauma and really dark things, so only watch this video if you're in a right mental space for it. And also, disclaimer, probably all of those things my therapist told me, but I was maybe not ready to hear it, or yeah. So the first thing I wish I knew was how hard it's going to be. Trauma therapy was by far the hardest thing I have ever done in my whole life. It was so hard, because the only probably thing that was very hard before that for me, I also had like some challenges and ups and downs, but the only crisis was probably before starting trauma therapy was my first breakup, because I was with my kind of best friend, and then we had to break up, even though I really loved this person and he probably also really loved me, and that was really heartbreaking for me and took me a lot of time to heal. But still, it is in no comparison with how hard trauma therapy was. Why was it so hard? Like, trauma therapy per se was not hard. What was hard is just that I had so many sad things that happened to me pushed down in my subconscious, because I didn't want to think about them because they were so painful. And in trauma therapy, you kind of open all of those subconscious wounds and you talk about those sad situations, and that was so sad and so hard for me. And also after that I got like all of those depression symptoms and also even a little bit suicidal, so that was really difficult for me. And it just, like, you can imagine, you have a glass, so I have this glass, and then before trauma therapy you have all this dirt which is on the ground, and it doesn't, like, it still influences you on a subconscious level in ways that you, for example, sabotage healthy relationship or you sabotage career opportunities, but it still is, everything is subconscious in a way. And then when you go to trauma therapy, like, it's really you shake everything, so there's dirt everywhere in a glass of water, and it feels like you're in the storm, and it feels like you're getting thrown up and down and everywhere. So it's incredible, but step by step you can actually like put the dirt out of the glass, and then it becomes just eventually step by step clear water again. And so you end up not sabotaging healthy relationships or things like that. So that is the process of trauma therapy. But yeah, I found it to be super hard. Probably depends also each person, each trauma that this person has experienced, but I found it to be like ultra hard. And I think probably in the best case scenario you want to do trauma therapy when you have a good support system, when you have like just you're in a good spot in your life. But I think probably more realistically people start trauma therapy when they already hit their rock bottom, like when they had sabotaged or their relationships, or when they don't know any other way out in a way, that's when they go to therapy. So yeah, but it's very hard. And what really helped me was the quote by my therapist who said, like, it has to get harder before it gets easier. So it's like you're like this before trauma therapy, and it has to go down before it can get eventually up again. Also, trauma therapy is not the problem. Trauma therapy is really just the process of resolving, like opening up old wounds that were never properly healed, and then opening them and then properly healing them, which is a very painful process, but it's very positive for your future and for your mental health. So trauma therapy is not the problem, it's really the trauma that happened before the trauma therapy. So number 3 of the things I wish I knew before starting this whole process was how much time it's actually going to cost and how much work it's actually going to be. For me, I really love all of that about like clearing subconscious mental blocks. I'm really interested in that. I was always like a person, I like to study, I like to learn, I love libraries, and I'm just not a person who likes to get my hands dirty. I just want to put my hands on a book and read. That's just me. So for me it felt great to learn all of those things, but still it takes a lot of time, like to understand the different parts on what is trauma and what is like mental blocks and what is specifically also the things that I had to learn regarding my trauma. So it's just a lot. So it's a lot to learn, and also it's a lot to process, like all of this emotional process. For me, that's also why I stopped this business completely, because for me, I did my business on the weekends also a lot, and I didn't have the time anymore, because now my weekends were really just about surviving, like crying and eating food and just covering the basics basically. So it's really, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of work. So be kind to yourself. If you, for example, if you feel like you're slacking, it's normal, because you have so much on your plate, it's so much to process. So of course you're slacking in different areas of your life. And I, for example, I didn't do any hobbies anymore. I was just like, I had, like, for me, the weekends I had nothing planned anymore, which was maybe not the best for my relationship, but it's just what I needed. I just needed to sit in nature and cry and just read about like my trauma and all of that. So that was really helpful. Yeah, also don't shame yourself. Don't also shame yourself for coping mechanisms. So for example, things that you've learned, if you, for example, got bullied in school, and as a consequence of that you learn to become a people pleaser, it's not, you're not a bad person because you're a people pleaser. It's just a coping mechanism that maybe at that certain point in your childhood really helped you to survive or to have a better experience, and now as an adult it's not so positive anymore. So you can lovingly unlearn this coping behavior. So that really helped me to switch my mindset away from, oh, I'm a bad person because I have perfectionism, or I have maybe this codependency or something, and instead say like, wow, it's so brave of me to actually look at all this mental baggage that I have and work on it and face the sadness, face the grief, so that I can show up out in the world and I can actually be a better person. Not a perfect person, because that's unrealistic, but a better person, and be there for other people and not cause so much harm. Another thing I've learned is that change is painful and filled with grief, even if it's positive change. So for example, when my first boyfriend and me, we broke up, I was so sad and so heartbroken. But it, like, looking back, it was the right thing to do, because we were both not bad people, but we were incompatible. Like, we had both different visions of how we want our future to look like. So it was, looking back, the right decision to break up, because we were not compatible, and still it was so painful. And the same goes with trauma therapy. Sometimes you need to do changes in your life, let it be set boundaries with certain people, or if you are in a work environment that is not conducive to your mental health, you need to switch work environment, and that change can be scary. And often, even if it's positive change, it's still connected with a lot of grief. So give yourself compassion and props, and say, okay, it's okay, trauma therapy or change is hard, but it's still helpful and important to create a better life for yourself. Also, what I wish I knew is that healing happens in waves. So it's not like, oh, you're getting better, but it's really like up and down and left and right. And sometimes you're healing for like a month, and then something happens and you feel like 0.0 again. You feel like you're falling again, but it's just a step in between until you get up again. So it's really like up and down, but eventually, over time, step by step, it's getting up again. And that's really, really important to keep in mind, because I was probably like sometimes really frustrated, and I'm like, man, it's been so much time that I'm struggling so much with this mental health. I want to be better already now, and it's just, it takes the time it takes, and it's not always going up. It's sometimes going up, then you fall, then it's going up again. But over time, if you put in the work and effort and you have a support system, very often it can get better, at least for me. Also, what I think is so important, oh my god, is to have a good fit with your therapist. I was so lucky, like, My therapist, I like him so much, even also as a person, and we are also quite similar in when it comes to, for example, we are both vegan. So I think if you're already vegan, you have a lot of things in common, such as like compassion for animals, for example, or like connection to nature. So we had those things in common, and that was really really great. And I don't know, I feel like I felt so safe with this person, and I'm so grateful for that, because I also know people who had a bad fit with therapists. And I think especially if you do trauma therapy, you make yourself emotionally really naked and vulnerable. So if you are with a therapist that is a bad fit, it can cause so much damage, I think. So really really important to feel safe with your therapist. Yeah, number 7, or like a next thing that I've learned is, yeah, you can't rush it. Healing takes the time it takes, and you don't get better if you when you want to get better. You get better when you get better. And especially if you have experienced a lot of loss, so for example, certain people died, or that were close to you died, or you have to cut contact or minimize contact. It's so much loss, and it's so much loss of safety, it's so much loss of hope and dreams. So it's really important to give yourself that time, and to let go also, in a way, to say like, okay, I do my best, I try to prioritize myself and my mental health, and I try to have fun, and I do my best. But ultimately it's a long process. And I remember, like, after 2 months of trauma therapy, I was like to my therapist, hey, like, this cannot be normal, I feel so horrible, I want this to end already, like how much more time? And then my therapist was like, yeah man, this is a long process, it will take a lot of time, because also the loss was very significant to you, and that's really important. So yeah, it will take time, do your best, but still in the end it just takes time. Also, what's really important is that you are not alone, and because there's this quote that the personal is universal. So on a global perspective, there are millions of other people who are going through the exact same thing as you right now. So for me, social media was actually really helpful. Like, I could connect on social media with people who have experienced the same issues, and that was really really beautiful to connect with those people, and to see, okay, they have the same struggles as I have, and I'm not alone. And that was very very beautiful, and I could really recommend that, because it's really important to connect with people who have experienced the same, because usually you share a similar perspective. So yeah, also what I've learned is that support system is super super important. So if, for example, I'm so grateful that exactly at that time also my boyfriend came into my life, and he has just a lot of understanding around mental health, and it was just so healing to be with him, because he's just very compassionate also. And I think that his compassion for me also rubbed off on me, so that I can be more compassionate towards myself also. So that was really beautiful, and also therapists and all of that. So having a support system, I think, is really important. And even if it's just animals or something, but just having like a soul that you can connect to is really really important. Also, what I think is important is to, and that's the last thing for today, is to find a way to process your emotions. So for me, I processed my emotions in a lot of different ways. So for example, really processing the grief, I learned that I had to cry and grieve, but also I journaled a lot. I shared a lot on YouTube also, and for me that helped a lot. But you can find your own ways on how you want to process your emotions, and talk about that in therapy. So thank you so much for watching this video. It's a really dark topic, but I really hope that it helps you. Before it gets better, it has to get worse. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm so grateful that I went through the process, through the grief, because now for the rest of my life, I will benefit from all of the things that I've learned in trauma therapy. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day. If you like this video, you can like it, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also check out the link in the description box and see if I'm currently offering something, because maybe I do. And so see you soon in my next video. See you soon.